Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Welcome to all the educators for today's session. I'm Dr. Anupama Dave, and I would like to thank UGC Human Resource Development Center of Gujarat University for giving me an opportunity to connect with you all and deliver my session on personal branding toolkit essentials for educators. I thank Professor Dr. Jagdish Joshi, Professor and Director of UGC HRDC of Gujarat University, who has been instrumental for such initiatives and gave me an opportunity to be among all the learned colleagues like you all. So, before we move forward, let us try to understand the topic and look at the roadmap that we are going to discuss in the session today. So, the session is titled as Personal Branding Toolkit Essential for Educators. What I mean is, like being an educator, what are those small aspects which can be considered by us in order to create a personal brand of our own? So, that is what this session is intending to deliver, for which this is the flow of presentation. So, we would start the topic by talking about brand. We would talk about what is personal branding, what is it, and why is it important for educator and for individuals at large. We would try to understand as an educator what are those elements of personal branding that can be leveraged by us in order to create the differentiation. We would try to understand the personal branding process with the help of a pyramid. And lastly, we would try to see how in those pyramids we can utilize the educational aspects and try to create a personal brand for ourselves. So now let us go ahead by understanding the most important aspect of this session, that is brand and personal brand. So when we talk about brand, if we carefully look at this slide, all the logos that are available on this slide, I'm very sure that you are aware about most of the products, most of the goods or services. If I ask you why, the answer is very simple. They are all very prominent and famous brands, right? But what made them very prominent and famous is again something which we have to be very careful about. It is the differentiation. These brands have been able to create a differentiation for themselves, wherein they have been able to prove that they are better, or maybe they are just different from the competing brands that are available in the market. And that is exactly what is a brand. But how to create a brand? So, if you look at this definition, it clearly states that it could be a name, it could be a term, it could be a symbol, it could be a design, it could be a combination of many of them. And the cases of the logos that we are able to see on the screen, they mostly are working on the combination efforts, right? So, a lot of elements are being used by companies over a period of time consistently to communicate to their prospective consumers that how they are different from other brands that are available in the market. And this is exactly what we also should be doing as an educators if we intend to create a personal brand for ourselves. Now that we are talking about brands, it is essentially important to understand that how brand is different from personal brand, or maybe what is the connection. So let us try to understand a bit about personal branding by moving on to our next slide. So if we look it into the document that has been stated over here, or with the statements that have been made here, it mentions that your brand as individual is nothing but it is the perception, it's the emotion, but not your emotion. It is the emotion that has been maintained by somebody other than you. Somebody other than you, I mean to say the stakeholders. So we would be talking in detail about the stakeholders in a later part. So right now I will keep it just to the self, that it is a perception, it is an emotion which is not maintained by us but it is maintained by somebody else. But then what would happen while these emotions are being maintained by other? It is because of the culmination of how you have been with these people and the experiences, the relationship that you have had with these people is going to speak for you. So, like in case of brand, there are terms, symbol, logo, tagline, jingle to speak for it. Here, it is the experiences, it is the way you have been with these people that is going to be more valued. But then, essentially, if we look into theoretical concept and try to understand what a personal brand is, so this is how the definition goes. Personal branding is a process. Now, I would want you to look into few words that I've highlighted over here, and we are going to use these terminologies quite often in the session today. So, it is a process. So, it is not one time activity. Do not misundertake personal branding as one time activity to be kept aside for a certain period of time. No, that's not going to happen. It is a process wherein you have to define yourself, you have to understand who you are, and then you have to promote and let people others know that who are you as an individual. So basically, while you go on to define yourself, while you go on to promote yourself, the brand that you are trying to create is going to be a combination. The term here that has been used is culmination, is going to be a combination, a culmination of your experiences, your skills, your values, wherein you can say, hey, I am different than others as an educator. So that is what is personal branding all about. It's not one time activity, it's an activity wherein you have to keep on defining yourself, understanding yourself, and promoting it yourself to the people who are associated with you. So let us go forward and understand why should we do all these things. Because when I say that it's a process, that means it is going to take time. When I say you have to define, you have to promote, again it's going to take time. Then why is it so important for us as an educator to do it? So that is also to be answered. Let us try to find some answers to this. But then, before we move on, in the first slide, while I was showing you a lot of logos, so if you are very careful, you would observe that when we talk about any of the brands, say Apple, you say Nike, we say any other name, any other brands we name, they have some product or they have some service which are being branded. But when it comes to personal branding, there is no product, there is no service. So, what is it that is getting branded? It is you. Yes, educators, you are hearing me right. It is you who is getting educator, who is getting branded as an educator, wherein your efforts are being culminated to tell people that what is it that makes you different, what is it that makes you unique in comparison to others. So we have to remember before we get into this process that we are the product who is going to be branded in this entire journey, right? And how are we going to do it? So this is we in the classroom, the educator. So if you look at the first circle, it says define. So the educator has to define himself or herself. The educator has to promote himself or herself. And what are we going to define? That is what I'll be telling to you in the coming slides. How are we going to promote? That is again something which I'll be discussing with you in the next few coming slides. And when you do so, what would happen is people, the stakeholders associated with you, would be able to understand more about you in terms of your experiences, in terms of your skills, and in terms of your value. So, this is the simple format of putting personal branding into context. So, here because we are talking about educator, so that's why I've put the circle as educator. If you are an entrepreneur, you can do it like that. If you are a student, it would be like that, but the ideology remains the same, right? So let's move ahead and try to understand more about these fundamentals and ideologies to understand it better. So this next slide is quite interesting and important because it's talking about why are we putting in so much of efforts. We are already educating, we are going to classes, we are teaching students. Why is this needed? So, this is needed because when we are able to brand ourselves well, we are able to create a lot of recognition about us. People would recognize us, right? And if we look back at an educator as a role, we act as influencers and role models to student in the classroom. Not for everybody, but I'm quite sure for some of them who are sitting in the classroom, we all, you all might be as a role model, right? So then recognition is also important. So personal branding is a tool that makes you more recognizable, and that is why it makes you more different in comparison to anybody else who is there, maybe teaching the same subjects or maybe dealing with something very much similar to you. The second benefit of personal branding, which I feel very much relevant to educator, is the networking part. When you are recognized more, people would approach you more, or vice versa. You would approach people more. As a resultant, you are able to create a very big network for your own self, which is not only going to help you as an individual, but then the benefit even goes down to your students because they also get benefit of good networking opportunities that you have created for your own self, right? So networking is another important aspect of personal branding that can help an educator. The next is, because you are recognized, because you have good networks, the third benefit which I feel very much relevant for the educator is that it improves your visibility. It is not that nobody knows you other than the class where you are going to teach the subject. You are known by lot many people, right? Because you are networked more, because you are recognized more. As a resultant, you get a lot of opportunities within your networks. People would want to invite you, people would want to talk to you, people would want to call you, or maybe they might simply want to approach you because they have some queries related to the domain where you work. When these things happen, of course there is improved productivity and thereby higher income generation capabilities for individual, which is again something very important for every individual. And when all these things happen, there is a lot of positivity because you feel good about yourself as an individual. And then those who are still not maybe, or those who have still not got their dream jobs, you are trying to get near to those jobs because you would become so strong that these job employers would come to you because they would want to hire you, and not the other case wherein you want to get hired. So personal branding is all about not show off, but it is about letting people know the authentic you, which can have all these benefits. And I'm pretty sure that as an educator, we all want to get all these benefits for us and then give away these benefits to all the students, society, and all the stakeholders who are associated with us. So then, after understanding this importance, I feel that everybody of you who are listening to the session right now would be interested in knowing, okay, understood that it is important, but then what needs to be done? So now let us get into what needs to be done by us being an educator to begin the process. So the first and foremost step to begin the process is to understand what are the elements that we can use as an educator. So, to all the educators who are listening to me, I would want you to be quite attentive at these aspects because this is the base of discussion which is going to even carry forward while I converse with you about the branding pyramid. So, right now, what I'm discussing is purely from educators' perspective, and then in the later part of the session, I would try to correlate them with the personal branding pyramid, and this is also going to help you develop some models, some basic fundamentals for your own self, which can be used by you at the later part, or maybe as a in form of an assignment. So let us talk about the elements for the educators. So if you remember the definition, I told that personal branding is a process of defining and promoting. Now, this slide is very, very important, wherein I'm talking about what can we define and what can we promote as an educator. Because we might think, oh, I just go to class, I take my sessions, and I come back. No, no, we do much more than that, and we can do much more into that. So let us talk about the educators responsibilities that all of us, I'm sure all of us are doing. The first role or responsibility that we take up is teaching responsibility. The second responsibility is the research responsibilities that we all have to do mandatorily. And the third responsibility is the administrative responsibilities that we take up as an educators. And if you remember the diagram that I was showing you before few slides, it talked about experience, skills, and values. So we don't have to create anything new. We have to just interpret and get meanings out of only these three prominent responsibilities that we are undertaking, and that is sufficient to begin the journey of personal branding for all of us. Right now, while we are getting into this process of defining and promoting ourselves, if you remember the definition, I was talking about that it is about how others, somebody, right? So somebody, understanding who is this somebody is also very, very important to us. So let us go on to the next slide and understand who this somebody is for us as teachers and educators. So the somebody is the stakeholder. So while as an educator we are into these teaching responsibilities, we are into our research responsibilities, we are into our administrative responsibilities, we are answerable to multiple stakeholder, the first and foremost being students, the second being the society and the business, the third being university or the college with which we are affiliated or associated, and lastly the parents who are sending their kids to our colleges and university with a lot of trust that we would bring out a differentiation in their kids. So they are all the stakeholders. So while we start defining ourselves into each of these responsibilities, it is a very, very good practice. Actually, it is one of the most important practice to understand how are we contributing to these stakeholders. Because personal branding cannot be just created if I go on to say, hey, I'm doing this. What we have to do is we have to understand whatever I am doing, how am I adding value to the people connected to me. So being an educator, we are connected to students, we are connected to society and business, we are connected to university, who where we are working or where we function as teachers, and we are connected to parents. So understanding this transition is very important, that we try to define ourselves, we try to see that under all the responsibilities and practices that we are doing, how are we contributing to these stakeholders, and are we trying to create any differentiation. So that is very, very essential to be understood. So let us try to understand and comprehend these all aspects in a better fashion so that we can begin our personal branding journey. So the first aspect of defining ourselves starts with the first responsibility that I mentioned in the few slides back, which is the teaching responsibility. Right? So we are educators. So the first and foremost responsibility that we fulfill is that of teaching our students. But then can we use it to brand ourselves? Of course, yes. But the question is how. So you can see a lot of things written on the slide right now. Let us take up them one at a time and discuss. So the first and foremost thing that we, being an educator, have to be very clear about is what are we teaching? Many a times, especially when we are very fresh and we are just beginning in our journey into the education industry, what happens is like we go on to take up any random subjects that have been given to us, right? And that is a part and parcel of the profession. Many a times we, because of the scenario, we are expected to be dealing with multiple subjects. But then after certain duration of time, it is really advisable to understand and idealize what is it that you would really want to get into as a teacher. What is it that attracts you? What is it that motivates you? What is it that makes you happy when you are talking about? What I mean is in terms of the subjects or maybe the domain. So maybe as a fresher, when we start, we go on to deal with multiple subjects, but then after certain years, it would be a great idea to stick to certain areas so that we can become more expert in those areas, because then our reading, our understanding, because we are spending more time into those domains, it would develop gradually. And when that happens, that gets reflected in the way we behave with our students in the classroom, right? So it's a great idea to understand what are we teaching, what we want to teach, and how we want to take it further in the coming years as individuals. That's the first thing. Now once this area has been defined, here I would like to add that I'm not saying that you only stick to one particular subject. It could be a domain wherein there are multiple sub fractions to it, and you would want to understand all of these fractions one at a time, and then you are giving it time to understand, digest, so that that can be represented well in front of students. So that is what I mean. I do not mean one single subject here. Now once you have defined that particular teaching area, or rather domain, that you are interested in, the next great idea is to look back that as a teacher, when I go to the classroom, how am I delivering the content to my students? So it is the teaching pedagogy that you are using in the classroom that has an essential inputs to you as a brand. So how are you teaching things to your students? So over a period of time, if we have been observing the trends, there are a lot many new methods, innovative things coming up. Flipped classroom has been a topic that has been discussed multiple times. There are so many AI tools now that are available with the potential to make the classrooms more engaging and enriching for students, and many software, many source softwares available to make videos for the classroom and so on. So I don't tell you to jump onto all of them all together, but then slowly and gradually, maybe topic wise, for every semester you go to them, you try to create new ways of being with the students. The reason is point number 3. What I mean is updated you, because though we might be teaching this course for 10th time, 20th time, 30th time, whatsoever it may be a number for you, but you should never forget that the students who are sitting in front of you, for them it is their first time that they are listening to the subject. So then, and the second is the generation which is in front of you is pro in lot many things that to which we are not, right? But then that doesn't mean that we cannot be. So it's a good practice to be updated, attend a lot of FDPs, or maybe a lot of video DIY videos are available which talk about how we can inculcate certain type of softwares into our teaching learning methodology. So So, lot of such DIY videos are available which can be utilized by us, and thereby we can try to ensure that we are able to engage our students in a much better fashion, so that they are interested to know and come to the classroom every single day. So that's the differentiation that we can actually create being educators. Now, let us move on to the second role that we play. The second role is that of a researcher. Now, being into academics, it is very much mandatory for us to do research, to do publication, to attend webinars, to attend conferences, workshops, etc. So then we as an educators can try to look at all these areas and try to create a differentiation for our own self. So you may ask me how. So the first and foremost thing, after our PhDs are completed, we should be focusing on our energies, maybe in 1.5 or maybe 2 years down the line, is to understand the research area. Because once we have started our PhD journey and we have completed it, we are at least having some basic notion and idea of what research actually means. But then the real journey of research, I believe, starts after our PhD, because we are more clear with as to what is the expectation that all the stakeholders have from us when we talk about research. So, one of the great things that we can do, being individuals and academicians, is to define our research area. So I am observing that a lot of educators now, what they do is they try to go on and meet, get connected with person X, Y, Z, and all of them speaking about concepts like A, B, C, and D. One of them would write paper, and all others would expect their names to be written as first author, second, third, and so on, which I find not as a good idea to contribute to us as an individual plus to our personal brands. Because when at the end of a day we add these research titles to our CV, they look sheer confusing to the readers, because they actually do not know we are an expert in which area, and that is what we should stop doing. So, what I feel is, like, after the PhD has been done, a good amount of time can be spent by the educators to understand maybe some domains or maybe some areas wherein they are interested and would like to contribute. It is not necessary that the area has to be one. It can be interdisciplinary, yet something from the domain. Because when you do so, and when we try to go on to do research in that particular area, there is a lot of knowledge enhancement that happens, and that knowledge can even act as a contributing pillar when we take sessions in the classroom. So we have to understand that there has to be some integration, some commonality across, so that our CVs are able to talk more than what we have to talk as an individuals. So identification of a concrete research area or areas is first step that we need to do as researchers, rather than going on to do research in multiple different domains from which we do not belong, because that's just going to actually complicate our personal branding fundamentals. The second thing that we can do as researcher is to go on with collaborative research. Again, I would like to emphasize here, by collaborative research, I do not mean that getting 3 4 people together and writing in multiple domains. By collaborative research, what I mean here is trying to get associated with people in the similar domain as to what we have, trying to write or maybe conceptualize research with them, because they also coming from the same background would have lot to add to what you are wanting to do. They would be at a better position to guide us as researchers, co-authors, or maybe maybe just initiators, to tell us and to convey that whether whatever we are intending to do, whether it has certain importance to the society or not. So that's very essential. So we have to collaborate with people across, but such collaborations should be with an genuine intention to understand research and its essence, and not just to increase the number of papers that we have across in the different domains. So collaborative research is one thing wherein you not only improve your research skills, but it also enhances the networking capacities that we have as a researcher, which is very very crucial. And the fundamentals of research can be discussed with our students, because we all are coming from higher educational institutions, wherein even according to the new educational policy, research has a very great emphasis. So if we go to the classrooms, and while we talk about theories, if we try to connect our theories with the research that we are doing, students are quite happy and they would be interested to listen to the logics that you have to present as an educator, and that can actually create a lot of differentiation. The third thing that we can focus as individuals could be trying to obtain some funded projects. So now, when I say the funded projects, there are a lot of agencies out there who announce call for projects, or maybe there are announcement for calls, and then they are very clear in telling us as researcher what do they expect from the research. So if we are able to go back to those calls and try to create a project around those calls, try to submit our proposal to those funding agencies, let us wait for their answers. It is okay if they get rejected for the first time, second time, third time. That's okay. But the amount of research that goes on beyond, like just to create those proposal, which might be just 5 to 10 page down the line, is tremendous, and it adds a lot of value, because for funded projects we have to give detail out for everything that we do. So if you quote something as a research tool and xyz is the budgeted amount, as a researcher there is a lot of brainstorming that has to be done to understand whether this amount is sufficient. I'm not supposed to overshoot. This is the research tool that I have to use, which we do not do when we are doing proposals for the normal phd also, because there we are not much concerned with the funds. It is just phd that we are wanting. But when we are doing it in the funded projects, it is very important to ensure what is the title, how the title is going to be researched, what is it that you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how much money is required, and everything has to have a flow. So that experience all together, and usually these funded projects have a certain norm, they have a certain formats to be followed, certain restrictions. So that is also very very challenging. So try to accept such challenges, because those experiences also give a lot of uniqueness to you being individuals. So it's okay to get rejected from funded projects, but at least give it a try. That is what is essential. Now, the last one is connected with the second topic that I was talking about. That while we are trying to find out collaborative researchers, I'm not saying that all educational institutions are not good, but then if we are able to get in touch with people who come from the institution of eminence, that would be a great deal. Even if those academicians may not write a single word, or maybe they might say that I'll just guide you, you have to write, that is also perfect. That is also something that we should agree to, being researchers, because the amount of experience that these people have is great, and that can add a lot of value to us being budding researchers, or maybe being researcher who are not much used to publications in high profile journals. So if we are able to get in contact with maybe editors of some journals, or maybe we are able to get their guidance for research, that would be like a cherry on the cake, because that's going to add a lot of worth to us as researchers, and as well as it's going to add a lot of worth to us as individuals, because we would be able to understand and know that what is it that we are missing, and because of which we are not able to get or make out into those top tier journals. Maybe of course it's not as simple as I speak, it is a lengthy process and it takes a lot of time, but then if we do not initiate, it's not never going to happen. But then such associations can act as a differentiation to us in our profile and resume at the end of a day, and that's what personal branding is all about. Let's talk about the next responsibility that we do, which is the responsibility of an administrator. So there are a lot of administrative responsibilities that we do in our organizations, and many a times I hear a lot of us mentioning that it takes a lot of time, it is waste, and it's not adding up to us. So I would really deny this, and I would like to talk about the positives of being an into administration. Of course, it's time consuming, it's not very easy, and that is how it is going to add differentiation to us as an educator, that we are not just people who go to the classroom, but we are also those people who have a lot of network. So that's how the administrative setup is going to contribute to us. If any of us in this session here are freshers, it would be a great idea to start with smallest of things, like maybe coordinating a small event within the classroom, or an activity, or maybe any some small project, like there are internships projects, or maybe just guest sessions. That's also fine, but let us start doing so, because when we are doing these coordination, we are moving beyond students, right? For example, if we are trying to get somebody for a guest session, so for getting that guest session, we have to have the connect with industry interface. When we do so, we get a lot of opportunity to talk to multiple people. Maybe five of them says no, the sixth person says yes, but then that one event gave you information about six different people in your area belonging to industry. That is how we have to look at it. They might have said no to you right now, but it's not necessary that they're going to say no for the guest session next time when you talk to them, right? So they can, such type of contacts can be used anytime, if you are in the same subject, if you are in the same domain, or maybe if you're in the same area. And that is what I'm emphasizing from the very beginning. Don't narrow down, don't make it very small, but then don't make it even very large for people to get confused about you. So do such type of coordination. Once you ace that particular type of things, the next thing that we can do is organizing events and competitions for outsiders. So that's it, we try to invite people from other places to our universities. So that is an institution building activity that we are doing. We are not only trying to get networks for our own self, but we are also trying to get networks for our institution and organization. And today, every academic institution is greatly open to all such ideas. Of course, it's time consuming. We cannot do it at the cost of our teaching. We have to give 100% to the teaching, but such type of activities and initiatives should also be taken, because that's how our CV gets value addition. Or maybe, to simplify it further, that's how we are able to create our own identity. That's a part of personal branding. It is even great idea, it's not necessary that every time we do within the organization we call people inside, we can also go outside. So that's the third thing that we can do. A lot of things, lot of workshops, lot of events that happen outside, wherein we can volunteer ourselves to represent us as individuals, and also to represent our school, college, or university, whatever we belong to. This also is very crucial because it helps us give a lot of networking opportunities outside. So these are all small changes which should be taken positively by us. I'm not saying that we are not doing it. Many of us who are listening to me right now would be into it, but then till this point of time we have been seeing all these things as a distraction. So let us stop doing that. Let us not think that it's a distraction. Let us think and consider it in terms of opportunities that it is going to add. So it might not add value in 10 days, 5 days, 20 days. I'm being very specific, but then in long run, all such contacts are going to help us for sure. So, if we very quickly rewind what we have been doing, because we have talked a lot till this point of time, we were talking about educator and we were talking about various elements that can be utilized by us being educators in order to understand our personal brand better. So there were three roles that have been talking about. The first is that of a teacher, the second is of a researcher, and third is of an administrator. We all are doing all these three, but it is time to look at all these three again and try to create a specific areas for our own self if we want to create a brand of our own in coming future. So once all these things are being defined by us, now it is time to get into the concept of personal branding. So before we do that, this is the consolidation of what we have discussed so far. So, as an educator, we need to define the roles, that is, the role of a teacher, the role of an administrator, the role of a researcher, and we have to understand that when we are performing all these roles, we are trying to adhere to multiple stakeholders. But until and unless we are clear with these roles, we won't be able to promote them, right? So defining these roles, where we stand, is essential to the process of personal branding. So while we define all these aspects, we would be able to give answers to the experiences, skills, and value sets that we have and which we are able to provide to the people who are associated with us. So I hope it sounds simple till this point of time. So now, while we are doing all these things, this is the next important step. So, if you remember, while I was trying to express the roadmap to you, I told you that we are going to talk about brand, personal brand, we are going to talk about elements, and we are going to talk about the pyramid now. So, this is the theoretical pyramid of personal branding, which I'm going to show you next. But then, while I show you this pyramid, I'm trying to interconnect all the discussions that we have done, and I'm going to give you some takeaways, like for each of the step. How can we go about it? What can we do as an educator? So I would really request you to jot down these aspects and try to practice these aspects in your day-to-day life, and please do believe me, you will be able to see a lot of change in how you perceive yourself and the level of confidence that we have as an educator. So when we do things, we are more confident about it. So I have been practicing all these things and it has given a lot of benefit to me, and that is why I would request all of you also to note down the aspects of each of the pyramids, that each of the building blocks of the pyramids that I will be discussing with you one by one, and what can be done for each of those blocks at our end, so that creating a brand, personal branding, becomes easy for us, right? So let us move ahead. So this is the key. So the sources for all the things that I'm talking about have been mentioned on each of those slides. So this is a personal branding pyramid, and if you go on to Google and you ask how can I start my personal brand, you would see a lot of things in similar lines, but this is a pyramid which I felt had all the elements that could encompass or maybe make the process very very simpler. So if you look at this pyramid is having some levels. We will go bottom up approach is what we take up. So there are 7 building blocks into this personal branding pyramid. So the first is unknown, second is self-awareness, third is vision, mission, goals, the fourth is target audience, the fifth is value proposition, the sixth is communication, and the seventh being the brand, which is the major agenda which we are looking for while we are looking at this session. So this is a 7 building blocked personal branding pyramid. I will be uncovering each of those layers bottom up, and at each of the layers I'll be talking about what can be done as an educator. Okay, so let us start with the first step, which is, so This is the personal branding pyramid that I was talking about, and now let us discuss and talk about the first layer of personal branding pyramid, which happens to be the unknown. Unknown. Unknown is like as an individual, not just as an educator. As an individual, many a times there are a lot of qualities that we are aware about, uh, and others are not. There might be many of the qualities that others are aware, but we are not. And there can be many of those qualities that none of the parties are aware of. So many of those who are coming from the background of psychology or maybe organizational behavior or human resource management might be quite aware about this fundamental of or maybe a model called as Johari window, and I'm referring to one of those quadrants over here, which is titled as unknown. So we are not going to talk about Johari window in the session here, but we would want to talk about this unknown. Many a times what happens is that as an individual I'm not aware about a certain quality that I am having, and actually it is good for me and for my job, but because I'm not aware I do not practice it. Very simple. So that is something which is unknown, and because I'm not representing it, or because it goes unnoticed, or maybe it is underperformed, that's why even people are not aware about this activity or this skill or quality of mine. That is what is known as unknown. So when we talk about personal branding, if you remember, we talked that definition of an individual is very important. That's the essence of personal branding. So this will not be able to, like, we'll not be able to calibrate the full potential of it until and unless we are able to know about ourselves well. And that is why the first layer in the pyramid talks about unknown. That is, as individuals we need to reduce this quadrant of unknown to the minimal. We have to have a good understanding about us as an individual. That is when we would be able to define ourselves well, and we would be able to understand that how we can be of use to the stakeholders with whom we are associated. Until unless this happens, we cannot help anybody, because we are also not sure of the quality that we are possessing within us. So now you might ask me, करें क्या? How do we do it? So then one of the easiest simple step that we can do in order to reduce this unknown space in our life is journaling prompts. So what do I mean by journaling? So this is a habit which many, you would have heard it, many of you would have even tried it, or maybe you were doing it. It's a good habit to write down some things on a piece of a paper. Like usually we have been told that after, at the end of a day, maybe you write down how your day was, right? Exactly in similar line and lengths we can do journaling. But then now, because this session is talking about personal branding and for educator, I would try to, give you more concrete evidences on what do we I want you to journal. I would want you to journal about you as a teacher, you as a researcher, and you as an administrator. So in all the roles that you perform, how your day has been. It might look as a tedious exercise in the first go, in a first instance, but I really would like to recommend this to be done, because it has a lot of benefits at the later stage of our life. Because when we are trying to write down these aspects as a teacher, how my day was, or maybe what did I do, what did I feel good about, what was it which was bad, was I appreciated by somebody, what made that student appreciate me. So you can just keep on writing. Many a days when we come out of the class, there might be a student who would come running to us and he might inquire, you told me this, how is this going to be the answer to this. There might be some days when you come back out of the class and then there is a girl coming running to you, or a student, any student coming running to you and telling you, ma'am, it was a very fantastic session, I really enjoyed. So that has been done twice or thrice by her, and then sixth day she did not tell you. So might be there has been something that was more interesting to her, and today you did not do that. So write down such aspects. Maybe if you cannot write very lengthy, but at least certain terminologies which might help you recollect that day and even at a later stage. So as a researcher, if you have done something, as an administrator, so see, teaching is what would have a lot of information. To be very honest, research and administration may have less. Only to those educators here in the session who are even performing administrative roles on regular basis, like if you're heading some department, of course you may have your daily experiences, so you can jot down them. As a researcher, whatever experience we have had, so those days when we are having it, we just have to jot down those experiences, as simple as that. I would recommend you to do this at least for a month, or maybe if you're not able to do that much, at least for 15 days. Once that has been done, I would want you to give one day to read all the things that you have wrote for yourself. Maybe just one page a day, 15 pages at the end of 15 days, or 30 pages at the end of the month, 31 pages. Go back to all those pages one by one. You will be able to visualize few trends within those pages. There might be some instances that are making you feel bad about the profession, or maybe the things that you're doing. There might be some things that are making you very happy for what you are doing. There might be things which are making you anxious or angry, and so on. The list is endless. So you'll be able to see some trends, and if you can recollect what I've been telling you in the past, okay, as a teacher you need to know which subjects, as a researcher you need to know what areas. So this journaling prompt can be your rescuer for taking up those decisions, because when you do it consistently for certain days, you will be able to visualize. So many a times what happens is, like, as individuals we are pretty sure, okay, this subject is good, this subject is not good, I mean, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. But then these journalings make you more strong with your intuitions that you are having, because you have certain logic behind what you are talking right now, right? So journaling prompts are going to be extensively important step to start with a personal brand, because it helps you understand a lot of aspects which you are also not aware about, and maybe even others are not aware, and so nobody can help you. It is only you who has to help your own self. So have a practice of writing and taking down those aspects. Now once you are done with that, we should go on to the next step in the seventh layer, as the second layer, which talks about self awareness. This is the second step. Once you are done with the first part, that is, you have started journaling yourself as a teacher, researcher, and an administrator, a lot of it would be able to, tell you about your own self. That is who you are at the core. What is it that you like? What is it that you don't like? So a lot of it would come out of it. The more journaling you do, the better for you, but minimum is 15 days, because 1 or 2 days are not sufficient. So there has to be series of activities that you do. So you would be able to know a lot about your unknown, plus you will be able to support a lot of your own understanding about who you are, what are your needs, what are your desires, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and you will be able to understand your emotions better. Many a times we get angry at certain things, and we also don't know what has made me angry. So the first step that we did in the previous slide would help you understand that what is it that is making you angry or anxious or depressed or upset, with T, that is as a teacher teaching role, as a researcher role, or as a administrative role. So the clarity helps you. So the clarity helps you to outperform. So it is not just about clarity. It is also a great idea to take help of the stakeholders that we have discussed previously. So the stakeholders, like our students, our the colleagues that we have, our HODs, our program chairs, or maybe the deans. So we can talk to them and try to understand more about our strengths and weaknesses. Having said that, it is good to understand that for all the roles that we are playing as an individual, it is a teacher, if it is a researcher, or it is an administrator, the stakeholders associated with them are different. So it is necessary to have an understanding from their perspectives also, that whatever what they feel are our strengths and weaknesses, because many a times we feel that multitasking is my weakness, but maybe for your boss or maybe for your head, it might be that because you are a multitasker, they feel that you are very very valuable employee to their organization. So understanding strengths and weaknesses from our stakeholders for us is a great idea. We do not need to go to them and tell them ki, hello, I want you to help help me understand my strengths and weaknesses. Just try to talk to them, try to ensure, give them clarity of what you are expecting, and try to get into a conversation, and that can help a lot of it. And if you are able to do it in form of an exercise wherein you are able to, for all the roles that I have been talking about, that is teacher, researcher and administrator, if you are able to understand strengths and weaknesses from your own perspective and strengths and weaknesses from your stakeholders perspective, just try to cross see that what do you think about yourself and how people are perceiving. There is going to be certain differences, and that is exactly what I was talking about while I was talking about the definition of personal branding in the initial slides. So once we are done with the self awareness exercise, the next thing that we have to be pretty clear as our third layer to personal branding pyramid happens to be creating a vision, mission, and goal statement for our own self. Now, having said that, people have this perception that vision, mission, and goals is not for individuals, it is for big companies. No, it's not like that. Vision, mission, and goals can be created by anybody, even a small child who might be of 6 years of age can work on his vision and mission. But that's a different story, that because he's small he cannot do that, but parents can help them do that. Similarly, as educators also, we can create our own vision, mission, goals and objectives set for our own self. But why are we going to do that? We are going to do that because it helps us stay focused. And that's the power of vision, mission, and goals statement. But then, how can we do that? This is one of those aspects which I practice every year, and I would really request all the educators here who are listening to me to practice this particular agenda for themselves. Every year, the last day of the year, I use colorful pages, I use colorful pens, I use a lot of glitter, a lot of images, and try to write down my own agendas, that how do I see myself? What are those things that I would want to achieve? And then, as the year progresses, as soon as I'm able to complete any of those agendas, I just put a tick mark on them. And when I do so, I feel very, very happy about it. Right? So, something like that can be practiced by all of us who are listening to me right now, because this is a very great way of trying to focus on what we want to achieve and how we foresee ourselves, which is very, very essential being into this competitive educational landscape that we are working on. So, when we talk about vision statement, it is all about what I want to achieve, to achieve that what I'm wanting to do as of now, and then trying to comprehend and put them into small achievable targets. So that is what is goals. Because if I want to see myself into a particular position after certain years, it is compulsory for me to work for those positions right now, because if I'm not able to do so, I won't be able to achieve my vision. So it is extensively important for us being educators, even if we are educators, to have a vision, mission and goals. And all those of you who feel that it's not for individuals, it's for organizations, please Google up. Lot many peoples who are very famous have their own individual vision, mission and goal statements, and that is what makes them stay focused. So it is a critical aspect of you and your brand. Now, how to initiate? Let me give you a very beautiful example of how to create a vision, mission, and a goal statement. Let us go to the next slide. Now, let us look at a very beautiful way of creating a vision board for our own self, which can help us assemble all this data on one particular panel. So, if we look at vision board, this is how it may look. Yeah, this is an example of a beautiful vision board, and it is not necessary if you're not much artistic, that's okay. It's not necessary to be very artistic, but if it is artistic, it would be very enjoyable for you to see the vision board whenever you are crossing those areas. So, I would really recommend you create a vision board and don't just limit yourself to vision. Plot down your vision, write down your mission, and even work on the objectives which would help you achieve those missions and thereby your objectives. If we are not able to write down the exact vision statement for our own self, that is also pretty fine. We can just write down few quotes with which we would want to get associated to from the journaling prompts that we have done. If there are certain things that we were appreciated about, we can list them down or maybe jot them down. If there are certain weaknesses which we have observed and which we feel that we will be able to manage it in coming years, that also can be jotted down by us. So it is completely our own area. It is not necessary that it should only have vision. It can simply have certain points that you want to achieve in the coming days. Having said that, I'm again repeating, or maybe telling this for the first time. But then, whatever you're plotting on your vision statement, it is not necessary that you might be able to achieve it at the first go. Like, for example, in my case, there are a lot of journals which I'm targeting for publication, but I have not been able to do it since last few years, and I'm okay with it. But they are still there as a part of my vision statement because I actually want to achieve them down the line. So at least what is happening is, like, if they are there on my vision board, they are always there in my subconscious mind that this is something which I would want to achieve. So that's the power of vision board, and all thanks to various online tools that are available. There are a lot of open resources that are available, from where you can download a lot of free templates. You just write vision board, you write for education, and you will get a lot plethora of templates available for you. So if you're one who is very artistic, you can go on to download those templates. It is also a good idea to have cutouts from newspapers, magazines. So these are all things that we used to do as students. Let's go back to that, because that is where you will able to correlate, look back, imagine yourself, and then come up with a vision board which is able to express to you what you want to achieve from yourself. So this is a very good exercise, and a lot of this would come from the first two steps, that is unknown and self awareness, would help us create our vision board in a much better way. So moving forward, if we go to the fourth layer of our pyramid, that happens to be the target audience. So when we are looking at our target audience, which we have already discussed, that the three roles that we have been discussing, we are not just trying to address to our students, but we are addressing students, we are addressing society, we are addressing businesses, we are addressing universities, and at the end we are even addressing parents. So then, if you recall the definition that have been like that we were discussing, the personal branding is a process, and it's all about how people whom you are related to, they perceive you. So as an educator, if we look back, these are the people who are associated with us, our students, their parents. We are associated with the university, they expect something from us. Ultimately, as an education institution and belonging to higher education institutions, we are always believed to be contributors to the businesses in form of some solutions or innovations or maybe practices. And thereby we're even contributing to the society at large. So then, at each of these roles, which I have already explained you in the slides before, we are not contributing to one stakeholder, we are contributing to multiple people. So as a teacher, when you look at the student, what is it that you are contributing to? So we need to look at that particular thing. As a researcher, you might be, the research that you are looking at, it might be getting you might be contributing to society, or you might be contributing to business. So try to look at it from a researcher's perspective, that whatever are your contribution, what is it? Is it novel, or it is something which has been done but you're just trying to test it again? So all those research gaps that we keep on talking about, and how it is going to add value to the business or to the society at large. So that implication needs to be looked at. As an administrator, you are answerable to the university, you are answerable to the parents who believe in you and give away their students to be kept with you for 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, whatever the course duration is for. So you're answerable to them. So try to look at their needs. What are they that they're looking for, and these group or these individuals, people or group of people, what they want from you. Because if you are able to make them happy, then and then only you will be able to create a brand of yourself wherein you can say, hey, I am different from others, right? So that is what is target audience all about. Like for example, if you look back at students, so then you need to understand that they are coming to the classroom, specifically in case of higher educations, they would want to know that how these theories can be put into practice, or they would want to know what are the new things that are coming up in the industry. They would want to hear from industry officials and so on. So, but then the question is, how do I understand about these people? So, as I was telling you, for every step, I'll tell you what we can do. So, to understand the target audience better, we should go on with profiling, right? And what I mean by profiling is, for example, the first segment, that is students, wherein we are responsible as teachers. So let us try to profile them. Let us gather and look back at their age, their gender, their educational background, their income strata that they are coming up with, coming up from, the geographical background that they belong to. So when we are in an university, we are pretty much clear about all these aspects of our students. So let us go back and look at them, because that understanding about a student would give you a lot of idea about when you are going into the class, who are these people whom you are talking to. So we have to have an understanding of the students as a whole, and then try to connect it with the teaching aspects that you are trying to connect into the classroom. That's very, very important. So these students were coming from a certain background. What are their objectives? Why are they here? And how you can give them back. That is what you have to idealize. Similarly, when you look back at society or business, how do you create a profile? So look back at your research, the research contribution that you are doing. How is it contributing to whom actually? First question. Is it a business contribution? Is it going to contribute to the existing industry, or it is contributing to the society? In both the cases, what is the contribution that your research is going to do? But even before that, have an understanding of, does society or business needs your recommendation or suggestion? Is it a pinching point for them? That we need to understand. So before going on to any research, it is a very great idea to understand their perspective, and that you would only understand when you profile them better. Similar fashion goes for university and parents. So while I was talking about the administrative responsibilities, I told you have conferences, workshops, seminars, everything organized in house, out house, and etc. etc. But then before doing that, try to understand you belong to which area, that's the college or maybe the university. What are they wanting to, for example, if they want you to do certain things and you want to do something else, of course they are not going to be interested in. So try to understand, as a college, as a university, what are their expectations that they have from you. It is only then your contribution would be valid or maybe valued by them, otherwise it is of no use, right? So try to understand need of each of these stakeholders at each of the responsibilities that you are undertaking. So profiling is what can be done. Now, once this profiling has been done, the next is ascertaining the value proposition. Now, this is very, very crucial when it comes to personal branding, because till the fourth layer, what we have talked about, we have tried to understand ourselves as educators, we have tried to understand ourselves as a teacher, ourselves as a researcher, and ourselves as a administrator. Then we moved on to understand the target audience, that's the stakeholder. So if you can recollect all the points of defining and all the problem, all the aspects of promotion that I was talking to you in the first few slides were exactly this, and that's why I had explained all of them even before I went on to this particular diagram and the pyramid. So now that you have understood yourself well, now that you have understood your stakeholders well, now it is time for you to think about the value proposition that you are going to hold for these people. That is, what is it that you are going to do for them, right? It is not necessary, like in the slide it has been it has been mentioned problem, solution, pain, and etc. So every time it is not that it is a problem and you are bringing a solution, or it's a pain and you are acting as a reliever. It can merely be a relation wherein somebody wants to know something, and that's why they are approaching you. And because you hold a lot of knowledge in those particular domains or those particular areas, right? So then, to understand whether you are giving solution to a problem or you are trying to relieve people from problem, you need to understand your target audience. That is exactly what I was telling you in the slide before. So if you have understood your target audience well, you would be able to understand what value do you hold for them in terms of their expectations. And when you know about them, you will be able to give solutions based on their requirement, and that is what personal branding is all about. So for example, when we enter into a classroom as teachers or as educators, whatever material that we are sharing, or maybe if we are taking the PPTs, I'm not saying that it's not correct, but then if we are taking the author's PPT to the classroom, so there are multiple sources from where students are already having leverage or access to this material. So it is not that what they are looking for. They are coming to the classroom for something more than that. So as a teacher, it is our responsibility to go beyond that. So that is the value proposition that you would be adding. Similarly, as a researcher, if we go on to research on a topic which has been done since long, of course it's not going to add value, and that's the major reason why most of the papers get desk rejected, or maybe they don't even undergo the process of review, because they do not add any substantial value to the body of knowledge that is existing, right? So we need to understand that what is it that is required, and we should be in a position to cater to that. That is what we mean by value proposition. But then, how can we understand this value proposition? So let us have a look at the ways of understanding the value propositions. So these are the ways. The first thing is like we need to understand what all things can I do. हम क्या कर सकते हैं? That's very important, right? Because if somebody expects something which I am not able to give out to them, of course it will lead to a big failure. So do not go on to jump on to conclusion that you can act as a solution to everything that is there in the market, because that's not possible. So try to understand what is it that you can do. Maybe it's a great idea to talk to some representatives of your TA. TA stands for target audiences. So maybe some students you can talk to, which this is something which I even was mentioning before few slides. So that these are all very crucial aspects which if we feel that I'm a teacher, why should I talk to students? No, that should not be done. So we can talk to our students. We can talk to the the heads of our department. We can talk to our deans. We can talk to our colleagues. Not all, of course, not the population, but maybe representatives, few of them whom we can trust. We can even rely on the past feedback, right? So that would help us understand that what is it that they wanted and we could not give. Lastly, we can also look back at our own accomplishment and challenges that we have faced in the past few years, because we are already experienced educators and we are in this field since a pretty amount of time. So when we look at all these things, we would be able to relate and identify that value proposition, and that is what we can try to target upon. Okay, so now that we have identified the value proposition, comes the next very important part, that is communication. Right now, here is where the actual branding process starts, because till this point of time, whatever we were doing, they were just different ways of reaching out to, or maybe understanding our agenda as a personal brand. But now it is a process wherein we are going to communicate about our personal brand to people and go out in public, and this is one of the most crucial aspects. And it was a great idea that before we go on to this space, we can do certain things at our own individual personal level to see how things are being perceived, and then we can take it up at a larger scale. So let us talk about communication. How do we begin this process? So talking about communication, the process can begin while we are trying where we are trying to use various methods of communication. We can use visual, we can use non-verbal, we can use online communication, we can use different platforms that are available to us. But the major thing that we have to rely on is like we have to be accessible and visible. So that's the most important aspect in communication, that is people should know about us, right? Why is it important for them to know about us? Because until unless they know about us, they will not have any information about our existence, and if they don't know about us, they will not be able to connect to us. So until and unless there are people or maybe industry people knowing that okay, there is a person XYZ who is a very good teacher, has done research in this area, and is having 10 years 15 years experience in this particular domain, nobody is going to come and approach you and ask you to go on with an MDP or a training session, or maybe to help them solve their problems in the industry, right? So it is very very crucial that people know about you, and that can only and only happen when you start communicating to them. But before you go public, that is before you start your information, it is very very important to know what is the message that you are going to offer. The clarity of these messages of this communication is going to come from all the four building blocks that I have explained to you till this point of time. Now, let us look at various aspects of communication that can be taken into consideration. So, there are a lot of images laid down on this projector. We would start by start with one at a time. So let us talk about the first one, the first image, which is this circle. So this is the graphics. Okay, so this is the first point. So graphics is one of the most easiest way and very attractive ways to be used in order to communicate about you as a brand. And I'll be talking about few things later on wherein graphics comes into picture. So various images and all that have been used by us, and we use a lot of images. Of example, the easiest one would be our WhatsApp status. It could be our Facebook profile page. It could be our Gmail profile image. It could be Instagram image. So we do not give more attention to what we are keeping, but then all of those are actually adding meaning to who we are as at the end of the day. You might tell ki, oh, there are few who are formal, they are informal. So accordingly, the images or graphics can be used by us. The second important aspect happens to be the typography. So this is the second aspect. So typography is the writing that we are using, the fonts that we are using. So as educators, we are very much known about two major fonts. One is Times New Roman, the other one is Arial, which we use and we ask our students to use. But then, other than that, there are different formats in which you can write stuff. And each of these formats have a meaning associated with it, right? So while we are using any of those typographies, now you may ask me, we don't use typography, we write it on a piece of a paper. But don't you email to your students? Don't you email to your colleagues? Don't you email to the industry connects that you have? So there, this typography comes into picture. There, images or quotes you might use comes to a picture. There, the color, which is the third aspect, okay, the third aspect that comes into picture. So as simple as something like writing an email can incorporate all the three aspects that I've mentioned here. So that is what I had begun off with. That when you talk about personal branding, it is not that you need to have very, very big agencies working for you. No, we can start it with the smallest of aspect, and I'll be discussing few of them right now. So these are three important things that can be utilized by us being educators and individuals at a very small level at this point of time. So, using these three, the first thing that we can contribute as teachers can be our course outline documents. So, this is the first connection that we have with our students. The first day when we go to their classroom, when we talk about, hey, I'm going to teach you this course, these are the contents, this is how I'm going to deal with. So, many a times, considering that this is a first lecture, we might not be giving it so much of priority, but that is the first impression that your student is going to carry about you. So then what can be done? We can try to introduce the course in a very interesting fashion. We can go along with some icebreakers. We can go along with some activity. We can go along with some stories which they would like to know, which they will remember for a long period of time. And it's a matter of creating impression. It's a matter of experience. We can even go away, we can also email the course outline to the student, and while we outline that email, rather than going with a very simplistic approach that is a black and white, we can add related pictures, we can add some good web links, we can add some good websites, and be prepared. Like the detailed session plan that we create, if we prepare it judiciously, actually it can add a lot of value, and it can be perceived by students in a very very different fashion. So that is one point wherein you can create differentiation. So course outline, which happens to be the first step that wherein you meet your students, can be taken very seriously, and your personal branding can start at that given point of time. The second thing that you can do as an educator is the email communications that you do. So every time the email communications can try to be attractive, you can use different quotes, or maybe you can use a different color, and that then every time, for example, if I have been using the palette of blue, you have to ensure that every time you communicate with them, you are only using blue, because then it should not be a multicolored email that you are sending to them. No, because even colors have meaning. So whatever is your basic vision with which you are associating yourself with, try to pick up color from those perspective, and try to have all your communications in that way. It can be just a font, a color, and a simple email that you send them. So these emails are not at all about you as a personal brand. It is of course about the course, it is about the content, but the way you communicate creates a lot of differentiation. So even a simplest of thing like a course outline and email can create a lot of differentiation. The third is, like, students today are very very smart, and all the people, like, may it be the networking people, or may it be the researchers, all of them are very very active on various social media platforms, and you are also expected to be there. Maybe not active, but you are supposed to be there. If you're a very active person, it would be a great activity to keep on posting more about those areas which you are interested in terms of teaching, in terms of research, in terms of administration, because that is how you build your profile on networks, like LinkedIn, or maybe Instagram. You can be a speaker, talk about it. It's not necessary that you post every day, but post on those times when you feel. So if there is something important that you have done, communicate it, let people know that you're working in a particular area. And similarly, when it comes to these platforms, there are a lot of options that they give. For example, the image that you can add, the cover page that you can add, and so on. So all of them can be given some priority now, and you can create a differentiation. The next thing that you can do as an educator, if you are fresh, then you can still wait. But if you are an experienced person, you can start having your own visiting card. And the content of your visiting card can speak a lot about you. Again, when you talk about a visiting card, it has your photo, it has your information, it can have your areas of expertise, and your CVs. If you are not experienced, and you do not want to go ahead with visiting card, CVs can speak a volume about you. So try to create CVs which are talking more about you as who you are, define yourself, and try to promote yourself for the visions that you are wanting to achieve. And lastly, you can also set up your own website. So these are all basic things which any one of us can do, and they're not at all expensive. You might think that creating a website is a very big deal, but then there are a lot many open source softwares, open source web site creating tools which are available, and that can be used. Even Gmail provides an a feature of that kind in its drive. So it is just the amount of awareness and the amount of energy that we want to put into, because it is all about our brand at the end of the day. So these are few simple things that we can begin with as an educator, and then start the communication. And once we feel that we are comfortable, then it might be a good idea to go on a larger scale and talk about our personal brands, because at the end of the day, all these things are going to add on to your CV. It's going to add on to all the stakeholders, and they're going to value you more as compared to what they were doing before. The next thing is a very beautiful infographics which talks about what all things you need to be aware of. For example, as I already told you, like images that you keep, they should be similar. You have to have similar visual identity and tone. So the way you talk, the area on which you talk, they should be similar, because if they are multiple, then they would lead to confusion. So please do not do that. This is something which I even emphasized while I was talking about research. Try to see that you are able to connect and engage with your target audience. Now, you, even if you look at WhatsApp, they give you that opinion, poll questions you can raise, MCQ type of questions you can raise. Even LinkedIn has that, Facebook has that. So all these features are getting updated. Use it for your benefit. Try to take leverage of it, but then you need to understand that you are engaging a right set of audience. That's very, very crucial. It is also a very good idea. It just struck my mind. It's also a good idea to write blogs in the areas where you are working, and then share those blogs with your students. Ask for their feedback, share it with your colleagues, share it with some eminent academicians. They can guide you further. So try to create more knowledge reservoirs. Try to keep your profile name similar, so that you are able to, like, people, if they want to search you, you are visible very quickly, because you are trying to brand yourself. So if you keep different names on different platforms, it's not a very good idea. At least not a good idea after you become an experienced professional in that field. So do not do that. And then if you have a website, try to ensure that all the contents, the contact details have been listed appropriately. So this is something last which we would want to do, but the first four are quite basic, and a very beautiful infographics being shared by one of the eminent persons. So these are the ways in which we can communicate with our people. Now, once the communication is done, then we are actually at the last stage. That's the seventh stage. We have already built a brand for ourselves. So as Jeff Boss, the founder and CEO of Amazon, mentions, your brand is what people say about you after you leave the room. And this is what I initiated my conversation with. It's not about what I think about myself, it is more about what people think about me. And that is why just understanding your own self is not a good idea. It's very, very important to even understand people. It is people by people. I'm very, very clear. I mean, our stakeholders to whom we are contributing as a researcher, as a teacher, as an administrator. So, what do they think about us is very, very crucial for us, and we should focus our energies and our efforts in that particular direction. So, lastly, so if you see this is a thumb impression, right? We all know, all of us have very unique thumb impression. So my thumb impression is different than what you all have. Similarly, when you talk about personal brand, it is similar to our thumb impressions. We have to be authentic. We have to be us. We don't need to create a hype about anything that we are doing. We just need to be mindful, and we need to communicate what we are doing and how we are doing. That's it. This entire process of personal branding is not at all about creating impression. So you might think it is about impressing others, telling them. No, It is just using the platforms that we are having. We are already communicating with them, but then communicate more meaningfully is what we are trying to do at the end of a day. We are not wanting to impress anybody. We are just trying to focus on how we as individuals are able to add value to the life of the stakeholders whom we are associated with as educators. That is what we are looking for, and that's it. So thank you very much. I hope I could add some value with this session to you. I would really expect you to go back and understand all these levels. Start at least with unknown and self awareness. Start gathering information about our strengths and weaknesses, because that would help us understand not only who we are, but also what people think about us. It is not going to be every time positive, but what people think about us, if there are any aspects wherein we can improve, that can really help us become a good promising brand in coming years. And competitive era is changing the dynamics. There are a lot many things which are changing the industry landscape, educational industry landscape, and we have to keep on upgrading ourselves. So with this, I would take your leave. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me, and I really hope that you will work on these pyramids one at a time, and try to build a very beautiful strong brand as educators. Thank you very much.